Come on in, everybody. Grab a chair, pull up a seat. This is going to be fun. Alan, how are you?
I'm good. Doing great. How are you, Jeff?
Man, it's been a really busy season in our lives. Lots of I feel like the travel has now come back to complete full circle of where I was before COVID.
Really? Because you were pretty hooked up before COVID.
Yeah, I was looking at the April and May travel schedule, and it's about 50%. And some of it's elective, right? So I've got a really cool opportunity to go to Japan with my church, and so that's going to be super cool. But there's a whole lot of work trips in there also. You're going to Inalek, right?
Tajikistan.
Inalek's in Tajikistan this year? Is that what you said?
I'm going to Tajikistan maybe next week.
Next week?
Yeah.
Dushanbe.
Dushanbe.
That's awesome, man. Okay. And Inalek when you get back, right?
That's the plan.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, people are coming in. Let me actually, you know what, Alan, let me verify if people are coming in. Yeah, they are. Okay, cool. Everybody, welcome. Thank you so much. We'll kick off in about 60 seconds, 90 seconds, do all the formal introductions and all that stuff. But while we are waiting to do that, I just want to say to David Sadi, a huge thank you before we get, because we're going to embarrass you up front, and that'll give you a chance for your color to rush back out of your face and you can play cool engineer again. But you have been doing so much work to make this thing possible today, and I want to personally thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Only a pleasure, guys, and good to be here. Thank you.
That's all right. So, David, we're going to spotlight you now because we're going to really embarrass you. You're new. This is your first Integrate Live as far as a panelist. Tell everybody a little bit about what the last 6 months of your life has looked like and your background and where you're at.
All right. So, look, I'll make it short. As you can hear from the accent, I'm not from around here. I'm trying to sharpen my American pronunciation, but I'm not there yet. So I'm originally from South Africa. We've immigrated here October last year, if I'm not mistaken. So packed our life in a couple of boxes that arrived 4 months later. And we're based on the East Coast of the US and enjoying every little moment of it. So come out of the industrial automation background with 20 plus years experience, working for big SCADA vendors, big control vendors. And now very, very happy to be part of this Integrate Live community and some other communities within the US and see how things should be done and learn and also give back.
Wow. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. And thank you for all the work you've already done for us. Really, really appreciate it. So David's with Win and the Software Toolbox team. We'll do some formal introductions here, I guess. I'm just verifying from the audience. You should be able to see all of the panelists' video, and you should also be able to see the screen share simultaneously. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody in the audience that that's happening?
I got a thumbs up from someone close by here, Jeff. I think we're good.
Hey, you love it when the technology side of it works and comes together. We've actually had to come back to Zoom. We had to upgrade. So this was our first registration where we hit the 500 mark. And with Zoom, when you go to 1,000 registrants capacity, you have to write a really big check. So a thank you to our sponsors. On today's actually virtual workshop, we've got 3 sponsors of the community: Software Toolbox, Phoenix Contact, and Canary. Because of that, we're able to do these. And so we just want to say thank you guys for that. All right, Alan, you ready to do the formal stuff?
Yeah, I am. I just have something to tell you about. I had a fight with my wife yesterday. She was super upset at me, and it came down to I didn't buy her flowers. And Jeff, I've been married 34 years. 34 years I've been married. I had no idea she sold flowers. Didn't know.
No, it's the things we don't know about our wives, Alan. Poor Carol. Carol lives with this all the time. And that's why she deserves the kitchen of her dreams, Alan.
Yeah.
All right. And we're joined by Win Worrell from Software Toolbox, who carries the title Data Plumber. Is that right, Win?
Sure. That's one of my many titles. At Software Toolbox, we wear a lot of hats. So today I'm playing Data Plumber.
I like it. Well, hey, thanks for being with us and guiding us today, Win.
I do have a question for you, Jeff. Do you know why Billy Joel's laundry was wet? Because he didn't start the dryer.
Oh my gosh.
The commitment is what made that really funny, by the way.
He chose to sing, man.
That and the bounce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still sitting on a ball, so I am. Yep. It's fun. I enjoy it. So
good. Well, hey, that's a good joke. Now you get the honor win of introducing our guest because you told the cheesiest of the jokes. Who do we have with us on the tech side today?
Sure. So with me from Software Toolbox, we have David. He's going to be presenting the business case and the Software Toolbox applications. And then from Phoenix Contact, we have Zach Stank and Dan Spethman. And they're going to be tag teaming the Phoenix piece. We're using Phoenix as the PLC here, which supports OPC UA natively. And then last but not least, we have Sean with Canary, who's going to be showing the Canary side of this connection. And we'll get into all the details about how all these little pieces work together.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. The audience is letting me know that somehow I've disabled the chat. Yeah. This is the tough thing coming back into Zoom after being off on it. They've got all these little micro settings that I need. Attendees can chat with, host and panelists, everyone. Okay. Now try it for me, folks. Thank you for putting that in the Q&A. Very resourceful, this group of engineers. Cool. Okay. Chat should be working. That's a good point to go ahead and say. As we go through this today, please throw your questions in the Q&A. But anything that you just want to have some fun with, do that in the chat. Questions are where we're going to look later on when we get done the project, and it would be easier on us if the chat was in the chat and the questions were in the questions. Thanks for that. Okay, welcome to Integrate Live. If this is your first time to a virtual workshop, we want to just say thank you for being here, and we want you to understand a little bit about why we're here as a community, why we exist, and what you're in for. Alan, you want to give us the summary?
Yeah, ultimately, me and Jeff got together. How long has it been?
A year and a half.
Year and a half now?
We started this idea. Yep.
Yeah, so me and Jeff got together and really had a vision of bringing together a community of people that were open-minded with the desire to really tie together three threads: openness, humility, and transparency. And those three things are really the core of what we want to do. And so I think we've shown that over and over again with the ability to be able to bring together even competitors into the same workshops for the purpose of really expanding the what could be done, how it could be done, and how does that add value, not just to the community, but also the companies we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And the companies that have sponsored this, their goal is to build the community. That's why they're doing it. So Opto22, Kepware, Canary, Flow Software, Phoenix Contact, Software Toolbox, all of these companies, and I probably have left even a few off, and I apologize if I did. All of these companies have come together because they believe in this, the interaction, right? And so we decided a year ago that we were going to have these virtual workshops with the focus of understanding the value and the life cycle of a data point. We said, hey, we want to really track a data point from where it gets created, often down at the real-time edge of operations, and follow it and the people that use that data point the whole way through its obsolescence. Maybe it's 10 years old and no longer valid, and just it gets thrown away at that point. And we wanted to bring awareness to each of these different groups and the processes that they represent or the departments they represent of why that data point matters, not just to their group, but to other groups, right? And so we've done a ton of projects. We've done 11 different projects at this, or 10 different projects at this point, 11 episodes that have helped show that. So this really cool thing that, Alan, has happened along the way, particularly in the last year, while this has been happening. The concept of, hey, what's broken about our architectures has become very apparent, right? That old industry 3.0, point-to-point integration, vertical stack integration. And everybody on this call knows that to connect these systems requires a whole lot of work. It's not just a simple little line that connects the two of them. There's a ton of code and development and integration work that goes into making all of this happen. And it's never just this easy. Well, Walker Reynolds, Industry 4.0, has done a great job of spreading the message of there's a better way to do this for the real-time data flows. It's the concept of the unified namespace. Now, a lot of our projects have hit this broker-centric, usually based around MQTT architecture that makes everything aware of everything and creates a single source of truth in the middle of it all. But some questions have come up along the way. Not that is this a good idea or a bad idea, but this is handling real-time data. And some of the questions that have come up is that, well, don't I, once I want to start moving historical data between these systems, have to go right back to that vertical stack integration? And it's never purely vertical. It's integrating all of the systems to all of the systems so that I can do what? So I can get historical data to flow, so that I can get the time series data from Canary up to my ERP system, or I can get relational data or transactional data records, alarm tables or accounting information or personnel information to these other systems. And so the UNS doesn't handle that historical data transfer. And so our integration work is just, we've escaped it point to point on real time, but we're right back living in it on historical. That's a problem. It's a problem that's come up inside of the community. It's a problem we've identified in these projects. Another problem is what happens when we have assets maybe we've acquired or expanded, or we've got skids that come from OEMs that don't match our UNS. So I've got this indeterminate system. Do I stop the operation of it and tie it into the UNS? Often that would be ideal, but usually that doesn't happen, right?
Well, usually that means you're going to replace a PLC. You're going to rename the tags. There's a ton of heavy lifting to do to get that done.
Right. And so what happens to the real-time and the historic data there? Well, again, we're back to point-to-point integration. Okay. So a bunch of us have gotten together and we've put together some thoughts and ideas around how we can create maybe a better framework or plan to help unify this architecture into that broker-centric, even for indeterminate systems and even for the historic data flow. And so today, for the first time in our community, we're going to start talking about that. And what does this look like? Well, if we add or expand the unified namespace to include an analytics framework, and this framework would share the work that we've already done in the UNS. So if we've already defined our model and we've already defined that structure in our events, we would inherit that inside of the unified analytics framework. The unified analytics framework would allow us to continue with the real-time passing of data through this broker-centric architecture. It should allow us to connect those systems that do not fit the UNS as it's been defined into the UAF and translate that mismatch structure into the unified namespace structure. So a translation service. And for historical, time series, relational, transactional data, it should operate as a broker or as an information hub or gateway. So we can truly eliminate the majority of the point-to-point connectivity, and we can serve historical data, real-time data, transactional data, with context. Yeah. KPIs, all of that from one centralized place. So there's some fundamentals that we would say, hey, if you're going to do this, these are the 5 things that maybe requirements is a hard descriptor. Maybe it's ideal requirements. All of this you might have seen published inside of the community already. If you'd like to go ahead and grab this packet, give you a second, you can scan this QR code. We'll also make it available as well through an email if you've registered for this. So you should have that coming up later on today or tomorrow in your inbox. And this will just guide you through what we're going to be looking at not just in today's session, but in our sessions moving forward, because this is a concept that we need to push into the space. Okay. All right. That said, man, that was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Sorry. Let's get into today's virtual workshop. Y'all ready? All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. David, walk us through the problem that we're solving for today, please.
David, this is all you.
Even though you wear the hat and fit the persona, but look, there's a beautiful information flow diagram that'll come later that puts everything in perspective. But the reality is that people and manufacturers specifically have ERP or enterprise resource planning systems enabled and installed in their facilities and operations. And there's various functions that obviously gets executed by these ERP systems. But more and more we see that the ERP systems also have the requirement to play into the planning around material, resources, etc., when it comes to the manufacturing environment. So how do you get that information in an easy way down to the shop floor or the plant floor so you can basically do that concept of IT OT convergence, but in a very, very easy and simplistic way to allow and enable bi-directional information to flow up and down and do what you do as a manufacturer better. So what we're trying to do and show you guys today is to see how we can do this in a very simplistic way and hopefully trigger some thoughts on the way going forward and see if there's a need in your operation. So we'll be using a technology from Software Toolbox from one of our partners called OPC Router, which is a transactional or event-driven middleware that allows us to communicate not only down to the plant floor, but also up to the business system or the ERP. We're using SAP for this instance today, but it's also applicable to any other ERP system out there. But SAP is known for being slightly difficult when it comes to integration. And then all the elements around it, such as the PLC from PLCnext, such as the historical data that comes out of the Canary Labs historian, and how we bring that back into a central business environment. So that's really the use case, but we'll make it more practical as we go along with all the inputs.
So let's overlay this with this UAF design just for what we're going to see today. And then we'll actually show it another way as well. But ultimately, out at the edge, we've got Phoenix Contact. Zach, where are we showing today?
Yes, today we're going to be showing a PLCnext controller. So it's, I believe, an 1152 PLCnext controller. On board, it kind of acts as a, three things there. It's a gateway, it's a PLC, it's an open platform. I think it's the most humble of all platforms as well. So it really fits into the Integrate Live proposal here. So, dad jokes aside, it really is doing a lot of different functions, and we'll be highlighting OPC UA connection out to the ERP system and the Unified Analytics framework. And then we'll also be highlighting some of the things inside, quick access and integrating new libraries, putting in a quick EHMI to visualize some of the data that we have going on here. So it's a lot of different things all at the same time. And we talked briefly, David said, IT/OT convergence, and this is a big, if you're on LinkedIn, everybody's posting that question, is it happening? What's going on? I mean, it is happening. I think everybody can say it's happening. If you talk to anybody in IT, they're going to tell you, yes, I want to know everything that's going on in my OT, because they're going to eventually try to connect things up. And so this idea of security and how do things work on the OT side, are we ready for the IT? We'll be highlighting some of that as well. So
awesome. Thanks, Zach.
Is that your dad joke, by the way? Did you try?
No, do you want my actual dad joke?
Dad joke?
I have a real dad joke. It's actually a pirate joke. It's not really a dad joke. So
be careful. There's a really good chance this is going to be a repeat.
Oh no. Well, then I
don't want a lot of pirate jokes.
Okay. Well, is it about the pirate's favorite letter? Is it a repeat? I'm not going to do it if it's a repeat.
Well, go ahead.
Well, you might think it's R, but my first love be the C.
I think we've had that. We've had the pirate on his birthday. Aye, matey. We've had the the pirate that never takes a bath before he walks the plank because he's going to wash up on shore. And we've had the pirate's favorite letter. Oh, well, Zach, you might think the pirate's favorite letter is the C.
Yeah.
But it's actually the letter from the Yankees general manager saying he's been traded.
That's a really good one.
We've had them all.
That's fantastic.
Right. For the Pennsylvania crew, they all get that. All right. Hey, look at here. ERP. Zach, I'm going to let you do another dad joke in a bit because I think you've got one in you.
I got a ton of them. Let me know.
Okay. ERP is SAP, but David, I didn't realize until you just said it, OPC Router doesn't just have to go to SAP. It could be other ERP systems. So that's good to note. But today we're going to see SAP. And are we actually seeing a real version of SAP?
Absolutely. There's no smoke and mirrors here. I'll show when we get into the live demo, the real instance of SAP. And we'll see how data actually changes in there eventually after spending 6 hours of configuring it. No, only a joke. That's my joke for the day.
That was a good joke. And I just want to just say I've dealt a lot with SAP and trying to connect and extract data from SAP. And I know the answer already because we've been talking on the backside. But I think it's really important that we explain that OPC Router is an approved technology by SAP to extract and write data, correct?
But a certified connector to SAP.
Yeah, we're not hacking anything today, I guess would be the other way to say
That's
that,
what
right?
I'm trying to say. That's right.
We're following best practices in all regards today, from security, from connectivity. And so you might typically say, well, if I've got Canary over here as our historian, and I need to get historical data into SAP, remember, what's the temptation? What would you typically be doing right now? You'd be like, oh, I would just connect Canary directly to SAP. I'm sure there's good use cases for that. I'm sure in the previously there's that people can argue and tell me why that should be done. I'm not going to be able to debate you on that. But we know that if we centralize data flows, we win in our scalability, right? So let's take a look at this. Maybe if you're fighting back right now, still stay around. Don't leave us just yet. So that means we need something in the hub. We need something in the middle. And Software Toolbox, we're going to drop 2 products in there today. What are they actually going to be?
Yeah, we have the OPC router for the SAP to PLC connectivity. And then we're also using the data hub as call it an OPC UA gateway to just add compatibility between OPC UA clients and servers.
Okay, perfect. So there's the tech stack for the day. I think we've just covered it. PLCnext, OPC router. You know what? Shame on me. I didn't add Cogent Data Hub up here. It's down here. It's our real-time middleware, transactional middlewares, our OPC router, and Canary is going to be using, obviously, Sean, what are our parts coming in there?
Well, yeah, we're going to be using our OPC collector and obviously our historian to store that. And then we're going to talk about how the view service is going to structure that and then present that out through our web API back to Software Toolbox and over to SAP.
Cool. Appreciate it. We always appreciate having Canary on here. And today your part's going to be supporting role, but I think it's going to be cool to see for all those, I know the community is heavy with Canary users, you're also going to get to see, oh, shoot, OPC Router lets me connect Canary's history and aggregates process data into SAP. I didn't know I could do that. And so that was actually developed for this project today. So now you can, thanks to, again, Mr. Sadi and all of his pushing around. You're a good project manager.
I'm having dinner with the person who helped us write that tomorrow night.
I apologize. Hopefully you're going to Moo Creamery.
And Brazilian steakhouse, I think.
Oh, well, my condolences. There's no one's ever left a Brazilian steakhouse feeling good about themselves.
This is true. Well, not necessarily about yourself, but just feeling good in general.
Yeah. Well, the servers.
I've started fasting already.
Yeah, that's good. There's no dad jokes here. All right, let's go. Here we go. Let's walk through it. Zach and Dan, tell us what we're looking at today. Give us a couple of overview slides, please.
Yeah, sure. I can handle these. So this is a general overview of Phoenix Contact. So we have over 60,000 SKUs that we sell. And instead of putting all those parts on one screen, and we laugh now because you'll actually see the next screen looks like I have 60,000 parts on it. We like to put everything here in our complete line offering. So we offer parts throughout the entire panel, to build with confidence. And this is power reliability, connectivity, signal switching and conditioning, shop floor productivity, safety, networking, automation, and control. And really, today we're going to focus on automation and control and a little bit of networking here, but mainly the automation and control products. And if you switch to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about them. And this is really where we get into our automation platform. So we have controllers, your standard PLCs. We also have IEC 61131 only PLCs that are not this open platform that we're talking about. But PLCnext is our open platform. We're going to be showing the 1152, which is all the way on the left there at the top. And then we have IO systems, IPCs, visualization, safety, tons of networking platforms you can use, security, hardware, VPN tunnels, and then of course the PLCnext store is where you can get different types of libraries and functions that you need to run with for the PLCnext platform. And then Phoenix Contact is a company, a little bit about us. We've been around, we're celebrating 100 years this year. So 100 years as a company, we're privately owned. We were founded in Essen, Germany, and currently are headquartered out of Blomberg, Germany. If you don't know where Blomberg is, it's south of Hanover. And if you don't know where Hanover is, everybody from Michigan likes to make the hand for Michigan. You can kind of do the same thing for Germany, and this is backwards. So Hanover's like here, and then Blomberg's like there. It's about an hour train ride south. So it looks just like Central Pennsylvania. So if you've ever been to Central Pennsylvania, you've been to Blomberg, which is a little different because the languages here, we speak Pennsylvania Dutch and not German, which is just slightly different from German. So
slightly. It's all the apple butter.
Yeah, exactly. But we're a global company with last year over 3 billion euros in sales. We have 19 international companies, 11 production sites, and 55 sales locations. So even if you're watching this globally and you're thinking to yourself, how can I get involved with Phoenix Contact and the products I'm seeing here? Chances are we have either authorized distributor near you or a local sales region that you can reach out to.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. Dan, quick question came in from Bobby. Hey, Bobby, hope you're doing well, bud. Is PLC open automation compliant?
Is that for me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it is. So transferring back and forth between other platforms might be a little bit difficult. Not everyone wants to make it easy to switch your programs over, but yeah, we support it.
Cool. Thanks, bud. Bobby, follow-up questions? Help yourself to them. All right. Software Toolbox.
Yep, that's me.
Good win.
Thanks, guys.
Oh,
so you can just start going through the bullets. I didn't realize this was animated, but we've heard from our users that it's harder than ever to get competent vendor technical help in today's internet-based sales world. So we make it easy for you to call us, talk to someone who's technically inclined. All of our technical people are engineers, and we help offer and make recommendations to what may best fit your application. We have free trials of all our software, and we encourage you to test it before you buy it. And if you run into problems, you should contact our team. Users who do contact our team and experience our responsive support understand how Software Toolbox is different than other automation vendors.
And what's your average time to recall somebody when they call you?
Oh, we answer, an engineer answers the phone when you call. So there is no callback typically. I'd say that's 99% of the time.
And right now the lines are blowing up. That's true.
All 400 people at once are calling.
Yeah.
That's right. One of the, and they've always been super, super good about being available. To that fact, I'll drop Win and David's personal cell phone numbers in the chat.
Sure. Home address, social security number.
all of those things.
So I'll talk about
the tech.
Yeah, the two different solutions. So Data Hub is a real-time middleware. Most of the biggest use of Data Hub is tunneling or secure tunneling, which is moving data, in this case, real-time data between 2 or 3 different locations through firewalls securely. And that's the biggest use of it. It is also a natural aggregator, which is what we're using it for today as a OPC aggregator, so that we have one connection to the PLC and then we can serve that data up. And then just on a side note, Data Hub has MQTT client and broker to easily convert between OPC and MQTT. And we also have some cloud connections to Azure, Amazon, and Amazon Kinesis. So
cool.
And then we'll talk about Router real quick.
Yep.
Router is more of an event-driven middleware, which ties in, different aspects, whether it's OPC, SAP, REST. We also have an MQTT connector. Today, what you'll see is OPC UA client to the native SAP, and then REST connections to Canary. So that's what we'll be displaying today.
Cool. All right. And that leaves, hey, Sean.
Hey, Jeff.
What are we looking at today on Canary?
Well, I did have one question for you before I kind of tell you about Canary. Why did the man fall down into the well?
Oh, Manuel. Something to do with Manuel.
No, it was simply he couldn't see that well.
Good, well done.
I was going to say, we'll never know.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Hey, Sean, have you ever seen twin octopi?
I don't think I have.
They're identical. All right, Sean, tell us about what we're looking at today. Give us the stats.
Yeah, well, of course, here at Canary, we're really well known for our data historian. And what makes it kind of stand out, we are a NoSQL database. We're built for time series data. And so we're able to really take and compress that data. We have lossless compression, so we're not, interpolating or expunging data. We're keeping everything there on premise on the same server for years. And we can centralize all that data from the edge using a server on site, or if we want to send site data to an enterprise level data historian, or keep that in the cloud, accessible everywhere. We have all kinds of solutions for that. We've probably many people on this already know about Canary. We've been in business it's almost been 40 years already. And we've grown, 70 countries, 20,000 plus installations. Got a lot of different options, but really one of the main focuses today is really with virtual views. So what that means is, we can do, tag naming standardization. So, we can keep all that, really aliasing those tag names and keeping them available post archive, which is nice because, we're storing all the historical data and just building views over top of that data. And then grouping those into parent-child asset models. And we're really just making all those, through regex, which is super cool, for, one role can, cover many different, views and data sets.
Yep. Thanks, Sean. And then the thing that's driving it today, I think, for what Alan's dinner buddy Ken worked on just a couple of weeks ago is this open API, right?
Yeah. And the cool thing is it's unlicensed, so you can have as many applications folks making calls through that API. So we're not limiting access to our data, and they can get that through they can get raw data or aggregated data. As you'll see today, we can utilize relative date time as well, and pass all that across, and also pass our asset modeling structure through the API as well, so that you can see it through the view. So hopefully we'll be able to show some of that today.
Yeah. And Len Crawford, hey Len, how are you, sir? Lynn said, "Hey, does that aspect, meaning the views side of Canary, qualify as contextualization?" Yeah, I think, Lynn, certainly. Contextualization we have to have the ability to contextualize data in every platform that it touches. Really, if you're a vendor and you're making a software or even a hardware solution, you're not adding the ability to contextualize, add attributes, to link metadata, then you're missing out on the needs of your audience. And we'll talk more, I guess, in here just a little bit about it. All right. Hey, we're gonna have a good time to solve this problem. So let's go ahead and get going on it. Who's missing a dad joke though? I know I want to get him out before Dan.
Yeah, I've got mine. I was gonna wait till I'm presenting, but I'll give mine.
No. I'm not going to be.
Well, can I have a do-over? Can I have a do-over since you guys heard mine?
Okay.
All right, Zach.
All right. So before I got married, my previous girlfriend was a tennis player, but we broke up because love meant nothing to her. So.
Well done.
Speaking of that, I made a graph of all my old exes. It was a X and a Y.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll sneak mine in too, though. But I'm not going to give this one to you. I'm going to give this one to David because I know how much he loves dad jokes. So this is a little softball for you, David. I'll be upset if you don't get it. But why did the golfer bring 2 pairs of pants to the golf course?
No idea.
In case he got a hole in one.
You got David to laugh. Yeah. Look at that. Dad jokes are funny, David. All right. So order of operation, what you're going to see. Let's just lay it out. We're going to start with the SAP side, right? David's going to walk us through our SAP environment. We're going to flash down to the edge, and we're going to show the PLCnext. We're going to show that doesn't have that communication set up. Then we're going to bump into the middle with OPC Router. It's going to be our information gateway. And all of a sudden, we're going to be able to connect PLCnext to SAP. And then we're going to complete the loop by historizing PLC to Canary and then feeding Canary back to SAP. So we'll have a nice little feedback loop here, okay? Cool. Who's going to kick us off? David, is it your screen share first?
Yes. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to share over you, and just to prove the point. Well, okay. I'm going to say share. Right.
There it is.
So just not if you can see it, but all that we're trying to prove here is I'm not going to give a lesson about how and what and why SAP is such a big solution from an enterprise perspective. But what we're basically showing here is really just data tables. Now, this is the true SAP colors that is live. So maybe just a bit of background. There's a couple of ways in and out of SAP that you can transform and send and receive information. So Router supports all of those elements. So the first element is RFCs, or remote function calls. That's what we're going to use today. So you'll see when we start configuring it in the 4.5 hours this afternoon, how we do the RFC component. But there's also BAPI, which is business application programming interfaces, which is different kind of function calls, and also IDOCs, which is kind of similar to XML. So as I said, Router supports all of those elements. So literally what we have on the top, we've got a table we've created ourselves. So everything that we've created ourselves starts with a Z. So we've got our formulation management, or our recipes for simplistic terms, inside SAP. So this is the master recipes. And the real goal here is to say, how do we get the master recipes down to the shop floor so we can do and manufacture product based on a master recipe? So if a master recipe changes in the enterprise world, we always have a version of that sent down with a plan or a schedule accordingly to the plant floor. And once we've executed that master recipe, we want to send some information back, which is what we're going to log some inventory information inside the Canary historian. We're going to send that information back in the reverse loop of that. So that, I think, is enough from an SAP perspective, because this is the real boring stuff. We're going to get to the real good stuff. So
just to let me recap it real quick. You're wearing your enterprise data team hat here, right? And we've got our master recipes being managed in SAP. but we need to be able to send that recipe to the PLC on demand, meaning triggered by the operator to say, hey, no, I'm ready for, I need another recipe. And then we need to pull from production, Canary, how much did we make of that recipe so that we can understand what we need to order for raw material.
So you got it spot
sales
on.
Numbers. Okay.
You got it spot on. So there's that unison between the target and the actual and keeping that in balance so that if you know, you can plan.
Okay. And wouldn't we just do this in MES?
There's no reason why you can't, but if it's a very simplistic approach of connecting the enterprise to the plant floor, why have, I mean, the technology today, which you'll see, for example, there are the PLC and the openness of the PLC, which Dan is going to showcase to us. We didn't have that opportunity 5 or 10 years ago. Now we have an intelligent device that sits on the edge that can securely receive and send information to an enterprise system. Why not start exploring that for simplistic and probably not even that much simplistic applications to achieve a specific business function?
Yeah, just to interject real quick, David said there's no reason you can't do it. And I would say the main reason you wouldn't do it is because of money. And typically you're paying an SAP person to develop some type of, remote call to get these functions somewhere where they needed to be. And like we just said, there was no way to get it into the controller. So you're stopping production to integrate a new batch, drink, and it becomes clunky and not great, previously. And so when you think about this, and it's one of those things where you have to almost take off the hat of how things used to be and just start thinking of like what's possible with an open control system and with OPC and MQTT and all the different tools we have. And now think about what can we do? How can we make things better? If we traditionally couldn't do this because of cost or because we need a specialized SAP person do it, is there a way to do it now that didn't exist a year ago?
I think you spot on there, Zach, because what we're trying to showcase is that even someone like myself with an industrial automation background and not an SAP background can work myself through the motions of actually getting this going without causing absolute chaos on the top.
I'll just add one more thing too also to this. When you're talking about manufacturing, which is kind of our use case today, typically manufacturing has an MES system, typically. Not always, but typically. You get outside of manufacturing and then the opportunity to have MES drops almost to nothing, right? There's MES out there, but my whole career, I've never worked for a company that had an MES product. Oil and gas, right? Distributed, large, slow. It's not a fast moving. And so we had SAP. We had things that we need to transverse between the production system and SAP. And the way we did that, spreadsheets, manual input. Clipboard. That's how we handled this.
And I think you're right, Alan, by positioning it in a manufacturing environment. But where you go into the non-MES traditional businesses like your oil and gas, etc., there's, for example, asset type information. So you might have a SAP plant maintenance module for asset management that resides in the SAP environment, and you want to send run hours from the PLC. How do you do that if you don't have an MES environment? So the opportunities are endless. And I think what you just
do it, because I did it. You store it in an Excel spreadsheet and it never makes it to SAP.
I'll do you one better. I've had a client before that took pictures of the SCADA after every shift, and they emailed those pictures to the data capturers. So that's a way of doing it.
Well, and some of our audience has probably seen Industry 4.0 the last couple of weeks has been releasing a series of videos on building your own MES. I would say this is one of the things, this technology might very well enable that homegrown effort to build out to make even a less of a lift or to be incorporated in. So I think it's timely that we're on this today. All right. So next stop, we've seen SAP. Now we need to go where? Dan?
We go to Dan. So Dan Masher.
Yeah, I'll take over here. So stop other people sharing. Cool. So everyone, thanks for the opportunity to present to you guys today. And thanks to the team here. I've been a member of the team for about a week, and it's pretty cool working with these guys. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate being able to present with you guys. I'm going to bounce around a little bit here, so please bear with me. This is the architecture.
And I think you're going to want to share again.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It didn't come through.
How about now?
That's great.
Go.
Awesome. So this is the architecture of the PLCnext. I'll go through this pretty quick because these guys are limiting me to 20 minutes. I could talk about it for a couple hours. But when we talk about the architecture of the PLC, we've got our hardware and the Linux real-time patch. The cool thing when we talk about the openness of the controller is we give you access to this Linux core. So we have probably about 20% of our customers that are just using it as a Linux PC. Within that, we've got our PLCnext runtime system, your traditional IEC 61131 programming. And you can see this is a PLCnext runtime. Outside of that PLCnext runtime, we can do things like we're doing with you guys here, using OPC UA to communicate with higher level languages, the PLCnext store, which I'll show you guys some cool applications on the PLCnext store, and Docker containers. So we can containerize applications and communicate variables and resources back and forth with your traditional PLC program. So I can have someone who writes a Python program, and I can use those variables from the Python program in my ladder logic or structured text. So I'm going to hop over to, this is an eHMI that's living on the PLC. See, we got some real-time data here that I will be spinning back to David. I'll hang here for a second if you guys want to check out this QR code. It'll go a little bit more in depth on the PLCnext technology, and there's some really good resources on that page. So I'll wait like 30 more seconds. Let you guys get a chance to take a picture.
Dan, you said you joined the team. You said you joined the team about a week ago.
Yep.
You've really gained a lot of Phoenix contact knowledge in a short week. Congratulations. Higher. Did you mean the Integrate Live team, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that one out, Jeff. Appreciate that.
You've been at Phoenix for a while, yeah?
Yeah, about 10 months. So not too long.
Wow. Good
Yeah, so
hire,
it's not as quickly as a week, but Dan has done a fantastic job coming up to speed and learning a ton over less than a year.
Yeah, I started May of last year, and let's just say them throwing me into the deep end was an understatement. But I'll show you guys this when I jump back into the PLCnext engineer programming environment. But there are add-on libraries that we get from our PLCnext store, and this is one of them. Allows you to see kind of status of our I/O, our communication, see if there's any errors, and this is living on the PLC. So normally you'd have to go into our web-based management tool or be logged into our software to see this, but using this library that I imported, you can have this information available to the user. So if I go back to my home screen here, I'll go over to recipe management. So we basically wanted to show that this isn't working right now, right, David? So
correct. So you can change it to recipe 2 and nothing should theoretically happen.
Yeah, so I'll cycle through a couple recipes and you guys will see nothing's updating. I'm going to jump back into PLCnext Engineer, show you guys what the programming environment looks like. This is PLCnext Engineer. It's a free software. So I ask you guys to go on our website, download it, check it out, reach out to your local resources if you guys want to learn more. Local resources like myself, all throughout the US, we offer free training, free support. We're not going to charge you to pick up the phone and call us. We also have a engineering services team. So if you're not comfortable doing PLC programs by yourself, or if you want to convert another manufacturer's program, we've got the resources internally to help you out with that. All right, so on the left-hand side here, we have our plant screen. Here's where my programs are living, my virtual HMI application, my OPC connection, and my hardware connections and communication. This is a live program here. You can see it's built in structured text. We also have the ability to integrate ladder logic and function block and sequential flow charts, all within the same code sheets. And you can break those down and have them execute at different scan times. We give you access to both cores of the controller, so you can push certain parts of your program if they need to be executed faster, or if you want them to execute idle, you can push them to the secondary core. So here are my global variables. You can see these are what should be coming in and updating from David. But I wanted to show you here for us the OPC setup. It's pretty simple. It's as easy as checking a box over here. So I'll pop back over to my settings. Let me disconnect here. So basic settings, we put in our IP address for the DNS. You can decide if you want it to be marked, which is what we have here. If you want it to see all the variables, we can select different subscription settings, direct read, high performance and real time. High performance and real time will affect the performance of the controller a little bit. Our security settings here. So a certificate, we can have a file live on the controller, have it self-signed, or provided by OPC UA GDS. Down here, you can see our different sign and encryption settings. We can set up a discovery server, OPC UA file transfer, or reverse connect. So all you have to do is go here, select that I want marked variables. I'll pop back over into my global data and simply check the box for the variables that I want to transfer. Over on the right side here, you'll see our programming tools or programming components. Here's where you'd add new programs. Within that, you can break it down for different libraries. I can show you real quick how to add a user library, and then I'll jump over to our PLCnext store to show you a couple of the cool libraries that we have there. So here I'll add a Modbus, and then you'll see up on the top here my programming components. It's as easy as that. I can execute different Modbus function calls. All right, now I'll jump back over to our PLCnext store. So part of the openness of the controller is we give anyone who wants it the tools to be able to build their own libraries, whether that's in higher level languages or if they want to build it within PLCnext Engineer, or either structured text or ladder or what have you. After a review process, we allow people to publish to the store, even resell to the store. So it's pretty easy to filter down. It's going to have me log in here, of course. Slowly but surely.
Only when you're trying to demo it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I can filter it by communication. You can see some of the communication libraries that we have built here. Modbus, IO-Link, SMTP, CAN bus, just to name a few. And I want to show you guys some other ones, but this bar at the top here is getting in my way. Of course, demo purposes, right, Zach?
And so while Dan's finding that, I mean, you'll see a number of these are free on here, and Phoenix Contact has developed a bunch of these as free libraries or programs you can import. Just to mention, there were paid ones on there as well. So third-party paid ones and Phoenix Contact paid ones. So there's a lot of different things you can add in.
Yeah, I'll highlight a couple of them. So these are some cool applications that I found. So we offer wireless devices called a WLAN. Can create an access point. This is a library that you can download and basically use this QR code to scan on your laptop or your cell phone or tablet, and it'll give you temporary access to or a temporary login to that EHMI. You can deactivate or refresh it from here. So this is a pretty cool library. Device and update management. See, this is a paid for library. Some other cool ones. We just released a machine learning module. So now we have machine learning as a left-hand module that you can add to the controller. There's a couple libraries associated with that. This is another new one, a ROS Bridge. So this is a robot operating system. It's a control system used for automatic guided vehicles to help expedite developing your automatic guided vehicle. And I want to highlight this one too. Sorry?
Oh, I was going to say very cool. I do want to get us back over on the demo though.
Okay.
Just a bit. So if what we showed, right? If you would show me back to the HMI.
Yes.
Okay, so
My.
we're connected, but we're not connected, right? We're not able to. You've pre-built this, and this is just a little web HMI. You guys have a tool included, so you can build this out.
Yep.
Right. Yep. But we're not connecting. That's the problem here. So we need to solve it, and then I want to come back to you, Dan, so that we can start to close that loop. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I'm splitting your 20 minutes up.
Yeah. See, I told you I could talk about it too long. So yeah, I appreciate
you will. Our audience will get mad though if they think we're selling them. We're not. We're just, Dan's passionate about it. He wants you to see. I think the store is a really cool thing on the PLCnext side of it. The fact that you can go and develop modules, sell modules, or of course Phoenix Contact can also put modules out there to help enable this. David, OPC router, and then Dan will come right back to you.
Right, so Dan, I'm going to share over you, and I've got to share screen 3. I always joke about the infinite share that sometimes happens when you share to yourself. So just confirm that you guys can see OPC router with nothing in it.
I see that.
So this is where the 4.5 hours start, Jeff. I'm not sure when we're going to break for lunch, but the reality is, so OPC router, event-driven middleware. I'm going to take you through how we're going to quickly configure this, and it's not going to take 4.5 hours. So there's a few concepts at the moment. So what is our objective? We've got SAP on the top. I want to get some recipe data out of SAP into the PLC environment. It's as easy as that. So we've got some sources, we've got some destinations. So the first thing, I'm not going to reconfigure this now, but the first thing, we have a source called SAP. So obviously we've set up SAP. We're using NetWeaver, which is SAP's kind of software stack where they built everything on, and also where the certification comes from. Give it an IP address, get a security username and password, obviously. So you're not going to do this yourself. You're going to have to work with some SAP resources within your environment. And if I've done that correctly, I can connect to my SAP instance. Easy as that. What is another source and destination, for example? In this case, it is OPC. The PLC is an OPC server, so I become the OPC UA client. So I'll open up my PLCnext, point it to Dan's PLC, load the certificate, give a username and a password, check the connection established. So that means from
up and down now, right? From
up and down. So I can see the PLC and I can see SAP.
So now we just need to wire it up, right, David?
Well, this is now where the 4.5. No, I'll stop with the 4.5 hour story. So just because we can, I'm going to create a new connection sheet and call it PLC to SAP take 1. And you can see it is completely empty here. So now we've got what we said in words, we've got to put in function modules. So the first thing we need, as we said, is we're going to have to communicate with SAP. We're communicating via RFC. You can see I've got the BAPI and the IDOC methods also. So I'll double click on this little object here. I'll select the SAP system we've configured. Now, just to take you guys through it, SAP's got the concept of function groups and functions within function groups. Now, a star is just a normal wildcard character. And as I said previously, anything with a Z is what we've created ourselves. So I've created a Z Software Toolbox group. And if I go filter again, I've got some functions inside that group. And if you remember correctly, I'll just quickly swipe it over. There's my Z drink recipe table in SAP. Different machine. So I'm just selecting that. So now I'm linked to the function group and I'm linked to the function. Now I need to know, well, what am I going to do with this? So there's obviously certain parameters I've got to configure. So as we said, as Dan's going to change on his little recipe screen, a recipe between 2 and 8 that represents a product, to filter all the way up to SAP, for SAP to say, oh, he asked for recipe 2, which is orange juice. Let me take the latest recipe and send it back down. So we're going to pass it an ID. So we're importing into SAP a drink ID that comes from Dan. And that's some of those variables he's created in his PLC. And out of the SAP environment, I want to create all that information. And I can, if I really want to be fancy, also go look at a message, for example, to see has it been successful or not. So there is my SAP block configured, what I want in and what I want out. The second thing is, where does this information go to? So obviously I need to, via OPC, somehow get the information down to Dan. So I'll just create an OPC data access object. I'm going to select Dan's PLC, which we've configured before. And theoretically speaking, if I click on browse, I'm now in real time browsing Dan's PLC, and I'm interested in all the drinks. And that's it. I should say apply and say OK. Now I can, if I want to go put the return message, I'm not going to do that now for the sake of time, because there's still a bit of work we've got to do. So now we are obviously saying, look, my drink, I need to do a one-to-one mapping. Now, if I click my little control key here on my keyboard and I drag my drink ID over to the one there, this is by far the most difficult task. It magically creates all the lines for you. And then the last element I've got to do, obviously, is now to read from Dan's PLC to pass something to SAP in order for SAP to pass something back to me. So OPC Router's got the concept of triggers. So you can have database triggers, text file triggers, OPC data change triggers, you name it, it's got a trigger. So all I'm interested in is taking a data change trigger object. Again, I'll just point it to Dan's PLC, which is the star of the show here. I'll try and be the star, but I think Dan is the star. Point it to Dan again. I'm going to say, look, I'm looking at the drink ID and I'm happy with it. Whenever it changes, do that. And literally make some space here, just move it, that, and say, I want to pass the value to SAP. Now, if I did everything correctly, I should be able to put that in a productive mode. And then if you will do me the honors and just change, put in recipe 4, for example, or something like that, or recipe 2, I see you've just put in. Can you see anything on your side? I'm seeing a problem on my side because for some reason I'm not.
It looks like it's working.
I'm not getting updates for that matter, which is a little bit concerning. So that's why you never demo something live. But
always demo stuff live.
Absolutely. But don't worry about that because I've got a way around it. So I have what I'll just do is say deactivate my connection and activate a connection again. So I've just got a little backup in case I've done something wrong. And if I now take this to a live production environment, if you can change that for me, please, Dan.
Switched it to 8.
That's better. So I did something wrong on the live. That doesn't matter. It's the same instance. So now we've got 8, and we can see we're passing information. We're passing the 8 to SAP. And out of SAP comes the following information, and it's mapping to the OPC variables. And I've got this little error message also on Dan's side. So maybe, Dan, if you can just share your HMI screen, we can change the 8 to a 7 or a 6 or a 5 or whatever the case might be. So just share over me and we can show the audience that it actually works.
Okay. So yeah, we were living on recipe number 8 there. Let's try 2.
You do 2, it should be orange juice. So that does the top to bottom trip from SAP.
Yeah, it looks like connection's working on my end.
So that was 4.5 hours of effort, with maybe a mistake in between, done in about 5 minutes. And we are reading from SAP. How cool is that not?
So David, you weren't getting the secondary piece of data transfer. Is that what you found?
That is correct. And you know me, Jeff. Well, Sean's going to do his stuff. I'm going to quickly find out why and what I misconfigured. But for now, it's working.
Okay. And so Sean can do his stuff. So let's just real quick come back to our overall architecture. 1 second, guys. I'm going to share. And what am I sharing? Here it is. Okay. So for Sean to do his piece now. So we've covered the SAP to OPC router to PLC.
So we got top to bottom, correct?
Yep, top to bottom. Now we need to complete the loop. We need to historize from the PLCnext to Canary, and then use Canary's REST API to feed OPC router data that goes back into SAP.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And we've got Cogent Data Hub here, acting almost like our DMZ, right? It's our security.
Yeah, so I can quickly just share my screen when it comes to just pull over Data Hub. So the reason why we've used Data Hub is, and there's nothing wrong, nothing right, but there's different ways of applying OPC security and specific UA security. So the PLC, for example, supports the concept of certificates and usernames when it comes to UA authentication. Canary at this stage only does certificates. So we thought, look, it's easy. We've got this little piece of software called Data Hub. So let's just look at Canary's OPC UA server. So we in Data Hub connect to that server as a client, and we create a server again out of the client. And Canary is then connecting to Data Hub as the OPC UA, and we've manipulated the security to only use certificates. So it's a matter of, yes, Jeff.
Yeah, I said just saying, got it. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. So I can look at my data and I can see all the data I'm reading. I'm just retransmitting via UA again, and here's all the information. So if Dan had to change something on his side now, we'll see some values there. We can see some live values, and that's the values that Sean will pick up from a Canary perspective.
Got it. So just for the audience's sake, we've positioned Canary as just being outside of the control network as an enterprise-only location. If Canary was sitting technically on site here, we wouldn't probably throw the Data Hub in the middle. That's the short term of it. We would
no, and you know, there's other ways we could have connected Canary to Router, because Router also has a server interface, but because of the architecture and Router being inside the Software Toolbox offices, we decided we were going to connect to Data Hub in our DMZ instead. That allows Canary to connect in without us having to go make any firewall rule changes and other things to allow Canary into our Router instance.
Just an easy, secure solution.
Yeah, just for me and the Eli 5 people out there, because you know I'm not super technical when it comes to this stuff. You know, the reality of what we're demonstrating here is Dan is in Illinois somewhere, right, Dan? Yep. Win and David are in the Carolinas. Is that correct?
Yep.
And so, you know, in the future, this might look really close to what an enterprise solution is, where people are everywhere. But the reality of what we're trying to do right here would probably be done all on the same, you know, in the same area. You wouldn't be across the entire United States and broadcasting it live to a number of people that could probably just put in the IP address and ruin everything that we're trying to show. So we did have to take some precautions here.
Cool. All right, Sean, share your screen and just walk us through the Canary configuration. It's going to be it's easy lifting for Sean today on this piece. It's basic, Sean, OPC collection.
That's it. Yeah. Let me go ahead here and share my Canary administrator. Okay. Can you see it okay?
You're good.
Awesome. So yeah, it's really just a matter of configuring our OPC collector, which I have running right here. So yeah, really here's those tags that I'm collecting, and simply I configured it by going right into our OPC server with Software Toolbox. And so I have my list of tags that we're collecting from. And yeah, here's the live updates I'm getting into the historian. You know, and the most recent one was just a few minutes ago. You can see what the values were for the drink ID coming in, for example. So we're storing all that data. And yeah, it's really pretty easy.
Yeah, like I said, light lift for Sean at this point. But I guess, Sean, now you need to take data that's in the historian and you need to send it over to OPC Router.
That's right.
David, do you have that to walk us through, or Sean, do you have that to walk us through?
It'll be on my side, gentlemen. So let's quickly go through that. And as you caught me now, I was playing around with, so I'm going to share my screen in a second. I'm trying to fix what I haven't configured properly, but we'll get to that in a second.
We did have one question that I want to go over. Sure. Pat asked if they use Ignition for their MES solution, and they're asking, could they use OPC Router with Ignition? And we do have users who use Router with Ignition. Typically that's over OPC UA, but we've done MQTT as well. So there's a couple different options to interface with Ignition.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Just piggyback off of that, PLCnext also allows MQTT connection and also Spark B. So if you were using Ignition and going right out to it, we could be a Spark server up to them.
Yeah. So just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yep.
I got you.
All right. So the only other destination, or actually not a destination, but a source that we have to now configure, and this is where Alan's buddy Ken from Canary helped us big time in order to understand the API. So is that we had to create a REST connection within OPC Router. So just to show you what the REST connection is, it literally just points to the host URL, and there's some certain authentication components. So then, and I'm not going to be as brave now to try and do this from scratch, but we've got a little workflow that says, here's Canary to SAP. So there's a logical three-step process. First of all, there's a REST connection. So this REST, I'll open this up, is that this is where we do the call, where we actually do a method of either post or get, but in this case, we're getting or reaching information out of the Canary environment. And then there's a URL endpoint that says, look, it's a tag data function that we're actually calling. There's certain parameters that needs to be passed on. And this is where, and Jeff and Sean, this is where you can add in. So for now, just to make it very simplistic, we're just pulling the latest value for that matter. But this is where you can put your time offsets or do your aggregates or do your time weighted variables, et cetera, and also tell yourself, listen, this is the group that I'm actually pulling from, and this is my path, etc. So if I had to do a test, for example, it'll pass all that information through there, and I can see, well, that's what I'm getting from the Canary component. There's certain values. So is that good enough to explain in your perspective, just in terms of how the API actually work? And there is beautiful documentation on the web from Canary's side, obviously, on the API.
Yeah, I think you did a good job with it, David. I dropped a link in the chat for anybody that would like to look at the Canary API documentation. So this is for reading from Canary. Don't confuse this with writing to Canary via API. And so, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. I got to pull my Canary hat back out of the drawer. But the beauty of that API, as I think David touched on, and you mentioned earlier, is you can do raw data, last known value, which treats it like real-time data minus latency, as well as, of course, aggregated data. So you could ask for what was the delta in my totalizer for the last hour or yesterday, or what was my production? Yeah.
So if you would have to, if it's not process-related information, but rather asset-related information or conditions that we're passing through, you can pull run hours based on that aggregate. You can put, pull counts in terms of how many times did a motor or a conveyor stop or start, and use that to pass it into an enterprise asset management system, if that sits in SAP or anywhere else.
Nice.
Okay. Yep. So then that REST call, so I've got to do a little bit of JSON parsing. Very easy within the OPC Router environment. I literally go, I won't break it now, but I literally go and under an edit element, I just take a sample of the JSON or the format, I paste it in there, and OPC Router is clever enough to then say, oh, I see the following variables. Which ones would you like to actually create as data fields? So I've just selected those. And again, I'll cancel. And then we do a RFC object, again, from a SAP perspective. The only difference is it's now going into an update table rather than the recipe table, but the inventory parameters has been mapped, et cetera, et cetera. And I've got even an error that I map, and that's the way we do it. Now, the only thing that we are missing here, obviously, is some sort of a trigger of when should this happen. So what we can do, just for the purpose of illustration, is to again just go and say, well, let's go back and let's see if we can get this going now. Let's go back to Dan's PLC and let's build some logic and say, look, if I pointed to the PLC, pointed to the drink ID variable that Dan's created, which is the one that we've been playing around with for all the time,
and say, okay, I should now theoretically, based on any change on the drink ID, it should take the existing information then and pass it through to SAP from Canary. It should read out of Canary, parse it into JSON environment, and send it to SAP. So if I take this into a live environment and I say go productive, can you do a recipe change on the HMI side, if you don't mind?
Yep.
So there we've done a recipe change. So we have been running 3. So that's why 3 has been passed. So just do another recipe change and tell us what you're changing it to then.
I just had it at 7 and I switched it to 8.
So as soon as you go to 8, 7 then gets so, and that's the information that goes to that environment. So I can see the actual visual environment where the workflow has changed. And that information gets sent up to SAP. Now, if I just to prove that from a complete closed loop perspective, you guys would see that this table here is the table that we're actually updating. And those are values that hasn't been there or has been there forever. If I do a refresh of this table, you can see that we're doing 7 now, correct? So can you change it maybe to 2, if you don't mind?
It went from 7 to 8, and now I'm switching it to 2.
So I should
update, and then 8 updates. Nice.
Yeah.
So we're 1 behind because we're asking for on completion of a run.
So see it as like a trigger when a batch is being completed. You can ask Canary, tell me the inventory update after this batch has been completed. So this proves to you that we can write to SAP and update inventory. And now our beloved supply chain engineers and experts can use this information to make sure that whatever they promised us when they're going to deliver it from a manufacturing completion point of view will actually be delivered, or they need to tell me that my order is going to be late.
Alan, this is going to be expensive. This feels expensive. This is a lot of functionality. To the audience, don't think I'm being cheesy on that, but come on, like I'm actually being serious on this.
Well, just think about what it takes to hire an SAP resource to come in and create the connectors and the ability to be able to pass data in and out of SAP, right? It's not an easy task, and it's not something that people typically do because it costs a lot of money to do it.
Well, what did this one cost? Wayne, walk us through the software toolbox piece.
Yeah, so to get a OPC router with REST, SAP, and then OPC client functionality, as well as the extra data hub piece, which may or may not be required, was around $360 per month as a subscription license.
We take data hub out
320-ish, give or take, yeah.
Okay. So OPC router on subscription, the functionality of what you've demonstrated, about $320 a month, $360 for the package.
Yeah, and it's good to point out the main SAP resource you need here is someone who, you need a login, a username and password, and you need someone who can create an RFC call, which is basically an inputs and outputs to SAP. And we have engineers doing that here that are not SAP experts. So this isn't stuff that's very hard to accomplish, and then can be maintained by engineering resources that you already have.
Thank you. Zach, what do we see on PLCnext?
Yeah, so for this example, we're using an 1152 controller. With that, we had the added Axioline SE I/O modules, so 16 digital in, digital out, 4 analog in and 4 analog out modules, which totals just under $1,000 at $995, and that's list price. So depending on your distributor or who you're talking to, you may be able to get a better price than that. But we deal in list price here in marketing, so
I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
Chris,
you matched on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll just add. Chris asked a question: are there annual costs, or are there only monthly subscriptions? And I'll just say, from both a Canary and a Software Toolbox standpoint, these can be done as annual subscriptions or perpetual licenses if you choose to go that direction.
Exactly.
Just on that case, there's some other questions, but I'm sure we'll get to the questions that's been posted. So let's wait before we answer that.
Sean, probably the greatest value in historians in the marketplace as far as historians that can, handle the performance side of it. Walk us what, 3,500 tags for $300 a month?
Yeah, you get 3,500 tags. Obviously, unlimited clients that consume the data, including API connections, and and then of course, collecting the data. OPC collector UADAs included, all for $335 a month. And there are annual options and perpetual license options as well.
Cool. Well, I'll brag up just a little bit about that business model. What Sean talked about earlier for the audience on the virtual views, like let's say that you need to slice and dice the historical archive and show it in a virtualized manner for an SAP connection, right? Maybe, hey, I need to match this naming convention, or I need to group this bunch of tags. There's no license for that either. You can build as many of those as you want as well. So,
Jeff, if you just pause on this for a second here.
Awesome.
Coming from the PLC hardware side of things and talking to our customers, a lot of times our customers haven't dealt with, software costs. They don't know how much it costs to get data out. And this idea of IoT, never really had a cost associated. It was always like this figment of some of our customers in the hardware world. What they don't really understand what it costs to do this. And I think the powerfulness of showing the data that we just passed and the setup that David and Win and Dan have done to create basically a top to bottom system that can report up and down, and then showing the cost of it here is very powerful. A lot of users out in the field have this idea of IoT and what they want to do, but they have no idea what it means. They don't know, sending data to the cloud, I can do that. I do it through Google Docs, right? I send data to the cloud all the time, but we're talking about enterprise data to a cloud done securely. This is a fantastic message here showing, just over $1,600 to get started here. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And all of this scales to some degree as well. If you're ordering, a ton, you're going to see a nice little price discount. Hey, let's go to questions because we're going to end on time and we've got 8 minutes. While we round up questions, if you wanted some more Software Toolbox information, scan that thing or check your chat. You've got a nice document. Thank you, John. Handed to you in the webinar chat. Sean, they can email you as well, or hit Canary's website. You can actually just get a free trial of Canary right off the website, I believe. Zach, is PLCnext doing free trials? Can I download a PLCnext for 90 days?
So we do have the software we were showing here, PLCnext Engineer, does have a simulation license that you can get for free for the 1152, which is what we were showing today. So that is free to use. You can simulate your project inside of that. We do not give hardware away for free, but we do have some demos floating around there. If you talk to your local control systems and IoT engineer, your local distributor, Phoenix Contact product, we might be able to get you a 30, 60-day trial of the hardware.
Zach, will you drop a link in the chat of how someone would find who their local distributor is? I'm betting that that's somewhere on the Phoenix Contact.
Absolutely. I'll get you there in a second.
Alan, ready to move into questions?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. I've got a question for you before we take the audience's questions. Do you know how you weigh a millennial?
Yeah, it's Instagram.
It's an Instagram, so that is correct. Well done. Man, I didn't think you were going to know that one. That kind of makes me a little mad, if I'm being honest. All right, to the audience's questions. A lot of Oracle questions, I'm guessing, around OPC Router.
Yeah, I did some quick research while we were sitting here, and it looks like the Oracle Cloud Fusion has a REST API. So there's no reason why we couldn't, with Router, connect to it just like we did to Canary. So I think that should be possible. At least at first glance, it appears to be. But
yeah, and any other or most other ERPs, non-SAP ERPs, has some sort of a web services component. And there's a web services connector we can also configure within OPC Router. So there's multiple ways of skinning the same cat.
I guess my one question to Lynn is, Pat Knox asked about Oracle Cloud Fusion. Lynn, is that with the Oracle platform you're also using? or is there some? I mean, Oracle has tons of stuff, so there may be another way to interface with your specific Oracle system.
And what about just generic SQL databases? Not generic, of course, but Microsoft or MySQL or Oracle. Can you tie in for triggers on OPC Router?
You can have database triggers that look at the database fields, and when they change, go do something. And we recently did a presentation like that of MES to ERP, which the MES was a SQL database in this case. So that's definitely possible.
Nice. All right. Other questions that came in. Question may not have heard earlier, but a specific question around MongoDB and OPC Router. Is it possible to connect MongoDB and OPC Router? That might not be one you know offhand. You want to research it for a sec?
Give me a sec, but yeah, I believe.
So I've got the following relational database connectors: MS SQL, MySQL, ODBC, OLADB, Oracle, and then SAP's cloud database. So I'm sure with the ODBC connection, I'd be able to go to Mongo.
Well, I'll just say this, David, we do have a Mongo plugin I'm looking at right here on the price list. So it is something that we can communicate with.
Nice. Other questions that came out of the audience, not out of my head, but PLCnext supports Docker, OPC Router supports Docker. What can we do there? Is there a potential to research and potentially host OPC Router on PLCnext?
I would want to do some research, but given that they both support Docker, it sounds like a possibility. I'm not going to go and dive in and say 100% we can do that, but it's certainly an option to explore. And given where Docker has taken us, I mean, it's going to take us to new levels, just like this is. I think adding Docker support can just expand the possibilities of where Router can live and PLCnext can live. But yeah, the answer seems to be yes, as far as I can tell on the surface, because Dan did mention 64-bit CPUs, which is required for Router to support Docker as well. So.
And that was going to be my response, was probably not on the 1152 is what I would do it on, but yeah, we can certainly look into that and dive a bit deeper with the Software Toolbox guys, because Docker makes everything great, Linux makes everything possible, and so it's not a question of will it work, it's how do we get it to work and what do we have to do to make it work. So.
Any other questions? Comment came in. I think Kept Server EX might be a good complement to work with OPC Router. I'm betting yes.
OPC?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can top server.
Yep. Basically, that's what I was about to say. Is top server is the main server that people interface with Router with, as far as we are concerned, because people buy a top server, which is essentially Kepware, and then they buy an OPC Router and talk to their PLCs and push it wherever they want to push it, whether it's an MES or an SAP or whatever other technologies upstream.
Yeah, and the beauty of that is, look, Kepware EX, top server, it's the same product. It's relicensed as top server. They're both going to do the same thing. Both are Software Toolbox and Kept Server are sponsors of Integrate Live, which is, again, the beauty of the collaboration here, right? And so, yes, Kepware EX is a fantastic opportunity to tie into that, get your drivers in there. And so, yeah.
And what a segue to talk about our next Integrate Live. You're going to see promotion of this starting next week from within the community, April the 12th. Look at the names on that list, folks. I'm like, Alan, I'm blown away. We got Intel, we've got Dell, we've got Kepware, Wachter, Insight showing up on our next episode.
You know what I realized, Jeff, is me not showing up to a meeting brought about Intel and Dell, so I should probably go to less meetings.
Yeah, well, it also caused me a little bit of stress. So let's not do that. Maybe. You're the technical guy. Remember, I'm supposed to be the marketing communicating guy. But we don't need you on this one, Alan. So if you're going to miss one, you could miss this one, because between Insight and Wachter as our guides, the pros at Dell, Intel, and Kepware, this is going to be exciting. I think we'll set records on attendance on this one as well. And don't forget, next week, Wednesday, we're live with the rundown. The same crew will be back to talk more about, particularly around the idea of, hey, MES, MIS, what is what? When do we really need it? If I don't have it, do I need to go buy it? OEE, all the things that will be fun for conversation around. What could we actually do based on the project we just showed for a single site? Now, I'm not talking about scale for 50 sites, right? But I've got ideas already hitting in my head about, since you've got database triggers, I should be able to understand, once we've done a run, when we started, when we stopped, pass those attributes over to the Canary API, run some type of a calculation aggregate, pass that up to SAP. We should be able to do a whole lot just based off of the project today for a single site. Again, not scaling at, an enterprise here, but lots to talk about next Wednesday. And
I've got a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah,
Are we changing the time? So it's 11 Eastern, right? So 8 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Central.
Same time, right? Did I say 10? 10 Central. Sorry.
10 Central.
Yeah. Sorry about that for confusion. Same time. Look on our LinkedIn. If you haven't done so, please follow us on Integrate Live on LinkedIn, and register at the community, integratelive.com. That's where this recording is going to get posted here later on tonight or tomorrow morning. Alan, let's wrap. To the crew that showed up today, hey, thank you so much for those that are in the audience that stuck around. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much to our presenters. And again, David, great job, man. You should be reaching way up high, patting yourself on the back. And Gwen, Zach, Dan, Sean, David, and Alan, thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate y'all.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, guys.